Welcome to the 359. I'm Roger Cheng.
I'm Joni Solsman.
2017 was all about information overload, but for media, there was a silver lining. It was a year where people started paying for subscriptions to services like Spotify or the Washington Post. Joe, you wrote about this trend. What's going on with this, and why are people actually starting to pony up for things when really a lot of this stuff has been free for so long?
Well, I think that you would see in any sort of underlying tectonic shift in how you approach the internet, there's a lot of factors going on with all of these things. One of them, at least particularly for news, is this thing called a Trump bump, wherein publications...
Whatever could you mean by that?
Publications that are specifically criticized by President Trump as being fake news might see a spike in subscriptions, or people of both, of any political persuasion are in this state of needing to know what the heck is going on because it's an administration marked by a lot of change and a lot of kind of an unusual level of chaos. I think that's fair to say.
We're definitely all, I think, dealing with information overload at this point, right? They're just headlines that flash constantly. There's a new development, not just with Trump, but just in general, the world. It's interesting that people are now paying for folks to actually sort of cut through the noise and give you what actually matters.
So those factors and then other factors are contributing to people feeling like it's worth my money to spend on what I could be finding for free.
And it's younger folks, right? You found that younger folks were actually the ones who were more willing to pay for subscriptions.
It crosses all age groups, but younger people are more likely. If you have more subscriptions, it's likely that you're younger.
Just interesting. I thought they were spending all their money on avocado toast.
Exactly. It kind of runs counter to what some people would think. You would think that older people who have more discretionary money to throw around might be getting into subscriptions. But it seems that younger people tend to either want to have their money go to a system they support that is, not some sort of corrupt whatever, but rather directly to a creator that they think is great, or they're just more used to paying for subscriptions. They're used to having a Netflix subscription. They're used to other kind of subscriptions.
That is just a huge change from when I was in college, right? When we were both in college. Next up, T-Mobile was at it again, bashing Verizon for its plan to offer 5G as a home broadband service. This issue was kicked up with John Ledger on Monday when he called out Verizon for missing its goal of deploying 5G broadband services this year. That's what they actually had told me exclusively a few years ago, that this was their big goal, was to get a commercial deployment out this year. Didn't happen. They're shooting now for the second half of next year in Sacramento as the first market. It's just more drama. A lot of it is, obviously 5G service or T-Mobile calling attention to itself and just sort of making a bigger deal than it is. But it's kind of interesting because they have these very conflicting views of what 5G looks like, at least early on, right? Like T-Mobile sort of sees it as a traditional cell network. You can walk around, you get cool 5G service. Verizon thinks that it can replace your home broadband with 5G, and it thinks it could do it faster than anybody else can get 5G out there.
Do you think the hue and cry over these timelines, do you think that makes a difference with people who they choose to subscribe or choose to have as their carrier?
I think it's... it gives T-Mobile a convenient punching bag, but I think consumers don't really care because 5G is so out there, such an out there concept that people, I don't think people are disappointed that Verizon somehow missed their target because it was always going to be some sort of limited deployment anyways. So lastly, we wanted to touch upon Senator Al Franken confirming that he would indeed resign in the next few weeks following allegations of inappropriate touching. The reason why we covered it is Franken was a huge proponent of net neutrality, one of the most high-profile figures in the issue. And so, in terms of the net neutrality cause, it is a bit of a blow. So, all right. For those stories and more, check us out on CNET. I'm Roger Cheng.
I'm Joni Solsman.
Thanks for listening.
All right, thanks, everybody. That's the conclusion of the recording of the audio portion of the podcast, which you can subscribe to later. And
subscription
for free.
That's a free subscription.
In the meantime, I'm going to try to not screw up anything else and go into the chat and dig out some good questions and comments. Man, I tell you, it's we've talked about this before. When I have a bad day, I have a bad day.
It's all right.
I wanted to bring something up with you, Roger, not necessarily for the audio portion, but after you wrote your story about this morning, John Ledger tweeted your story.
Oh, did
Even though your story is basically about his tweet. It's like an echo chamber.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you wrote a story about
Yeah,
John Legend's
yeah.
tweet, which he retweeted in
I
order to
remember
like
that.
punch the bag that is Verizon a little bit more.
Yeah, it was just sort of like he was hanging up the pinata and just doing a little more extra whacking. He actually retweeted my original story a few days ago. I didn't realize it until after the fact, but he retweeted the story that I wrote. I think it was like in 2014, 2015,
Oh,
2015.
so he had a little deep cut.
Yeah, he went to like,
Roger Cheng.
yeah,
deep
way
cut.
back machine. He hopped in there, pulled out this little story. Yeah, and I remember like it was a big deal when Verizon came out 2 years ago and was like, we're gonna do this thing. And there was a bit of criticism from rivals that basically said, you're basically just sort of obscuring the issue that you're losing customers and you want to talk about 5G because 5G is like the brand spanking new thing and it's new and shiny. And to some extent, some of that is kind of true. Like Verizon did start losing customers shortly after that. But I mean, the 5G, the money and the investment they're putting into 5G is real. And I know that like the technology is really finicky and hard to play with. So I don't know. I don't necessarily give Verizon too much flack for like missing their target because it's like a theoretical thing and customers weren't really banking on, cutting their cable line and replacing it with the Verizon 5G. Like that just wasn't going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know. I saw he did retweet. Yeah. He's been a lot less. He's tweeted me a lot less recently.
What's happening to the bromance?
Bromance is gone, man. It was never there.
Roger's in denial.
No. Brian, do you have any questions?
Well,
Change of subject.
Moving on.
I'd like to jump in to discuss about the subscription packages.
Yeah, totally.
Topic. I myself, I've always said, give me a reason, give me an excuse to pay for this, because what bothers me the most and what we potentially might see with the loss of net neutrality is so many things stuck behind so many complicated paywalls and so a la carte. And while a la carte was a great idea on paper a few years ago, I was dreaming like, oh, I can just cherry pick exactly what I want, and they tell me
the channels you want,
and then they tally it up, and then they start grouping them in weird ways,
right? And
now I gotta be subscribed to like 18 different things to finish one single series, like. That's what I'm waiting for. When you read comics, for example, when DC does a big event kind of thing, you got to buy Batman 162, and then you got to buy Action Comics 14. Story continues in the Spectre 47.
And don't they do that like every year?
And they do lots of that, and that's what I'm afraid is going to start happening with streaming media to an extent.
I don't think net neutrality is going to be the cause of that.
No, but because
I've seen a lot of comments about like fears of bundling different services, and I don't think that's going to happen. Especially like weird groupings of like you have to your social media package or your like video package. I don't think that's really going to happen. I mean, it seems kind of unfeasible, but
this is my deepest, darkest fears. Though,
no, I hear you.
But I've always said, give me an excuse to pay for this. And sometimes when like an HBO show is stuck behind a very specific, it's easy to find alternative ways to get a hold of that content if you would stop being a butthead and just make it more globally available. I don't want to have to pay a cable subscription to get access to the on-demand. I'll pay you a portion of that just to have the on-demand, but I don't have cable, so I can't get a lot of things. I know that's the whole point of supply and demand. That's commerce for you.
Right.
But we have better distribution methods now. Use them.
I would say that's shifting. Like you don't necessarily need a cable TV subscription now to get a lot of content. Like it's.
But you still do. You do for a lot of it.
A lot of that. But the thing.
Lifetime Media, Nickelodeon.
Really, Nickelodeon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's we're still not at this point yet where every channel has its own streaming option like HBO now.
But there are options like Sling TV and DirecTV Now that offer some of these bundles. Maybe not every channel, sure.
Of course, it's always going to be changing, especially now. But the idea that's like, okay, so if I really want to watch this show, I have to pay $160 a month to subscribe to Time Warner cable broadcast and then apply to get in to the on-demand, whatever.
The streaming service.
The streaming thing after the fact. But I still have to pay for a bunch of everybody else's crap that I hate just to get this one thing. Screw you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why the story that we wrote doesn't really get into television streaming, and that's because it doesn't really fit into the same trend, because it's locked up in this legacy model where
Yep.
everything's bundled together and you
Totally.
have a couple of gigantic distributors and that's the only way you can get it. And that's been a really lucrative way to make money for programmers and for distributors for a long time. And, as the internet has been able to disaggregate all kinds of different media, it's also disaggregating channels with things like the Disney streaming service to be forthcoming and HBO Now, and when you can get whatever channel that you want a la carte, totally a la carte.
So going back to that, my original point about how comic books kind of divvy all over the place.
Yeah, yeah.
Tammy's pointing out that some TV shows already do that. If you look at the like the DC TV universe, where
Yeah.
they'll have the big crossover episodes.
Yeah, yeah.
Now picture this: now that Disney is acquiring Fox Entertainment tentatively,
Well, that's not.
allegedly.
Yeah.
But I'm just I'm putting a perfect storm on the table here. So we've got a Netflix original show that is a Marvel-based show. Let's say it's Daredevil.
Yeah.
And then Disney buys these properties and then launches their own service, whereas the original ones stay on Netflix. If that linear story arc continues, you now have to subscribe to Netflix and Disney
Well,
Except
as
that
a service.
Well, not necessarily.
Disney's
right?
not making any more after they're not going to make any more with Netflix. Those are never they're not going to be leaving Netflix. And they're not
Right, but wouldn't it be, I honestly, in this situation, I think it'd be smarter if they did move them all into the same platform, because now I have to pay 2 subscriptions to have all of these available to me.
right if you wanted the library.
Because I'm a
together.
rewatcher,
Yeah.
habitually.
Yeah.
Gotcha there.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, you could also say that you're making the case for a Big Brother mega media corporation where it's all the nerd stuff is collected into one place, and that means
Yeah, that's
that
true.
means
That's isn't that
That's
pretty
pretty
much
bad.
what it is if Disney buys Fox?
Yeah, it's kind of, that's
Pretty
it
much
now.
all-
well, because he's not buying Netflix though. That's what I think.
Yet.
that's the point.
Oh yeah.
But
Yet.
they could. Disney could buy
I don't
anything.
think Disney could afford Netflix.
Yeah,
Could it?
Disney can afford a lot
Okay.
of stuff.
All right.
Disney could buy me.
Well, yeah, but you're not
But
Netflix.
you are a lot cheaper than
Yeah.
Netflix.
What do you
I mean,
saying?
not that much cheaper though. You're a very
Right.
valuable guy for sure.
Right.
All right, so let's take some questions. Strinjoy, is the trend of subscriptions an effect of the surge of cloud storage and media in a vast quantity?
Of cloud storage of media?
Interesting. The idea that it's more available online.
Being that, let's say in the last 10 years, you've just seen a mega dump of stuff just starting to exist online.
I mean, yeah, I think the general trend of having stuff be available for streaming. I mean, yes, I think it makes it more attractive. Yeah, I'm not sure I have a good answer for that.
Yeah. I don't see a real correlation between the two, but I just haven't really thought
I mean,
about
I
it
think
very
it's
much.
the idea. Well, the more basic idea that if it's because this stuff is all online, it can be moved around easier, and thus you could have these kinds of business models. I guess that's a fairly basic concept, I think.
Yeah, I think I see what he's getting at with this, though. It's more just about the sheer fact of the wealth of the information rather than the organization or any kind of strategy to it. Just there's a mass pile of crap, and you're sifting through crap, I think, most of the time, maybe. And having a service involved to do the sifting
does
for you.
more curation.
Yeah. And I mean, I think about the generation right now that's growing up with YouTube as a primary media provider.
Right.
And the noise that's here on YouTube, really bad noise, this show excluded, of course. But I mean, they're raised in this limelight or not limelight, that's the wrong term, within this concept where, screw those guys on the big screen TV. I like this kid. He gets me. And it's just another kid, the PewDiePies of the world. That's
Right.
what a lot of kids are growing up admiring now. It's they did it themselves. I want to do it myself. And then they get motivated themselves to be creative as well. And I don't know. That's probably a double-edged sword in there
Yeah.
somewhere, but
Although I feel like we're getting away from the premise of the question.
maybe we are. Sorry. It's a lot to think about. This is an interesting topic to me personally just because
Yeah.
of where we work
Yeah.
and what we do.
I mean, it's definitely interesting from the news side, seeing the Washington Post and the New York Times as well.
Yeah.
We're actually thriving largely because of this Trump bump. But I mean, these are traditional services weren't really, especially when I was the last whatever decade, we weren't really into the idea of paying for news, right? Because it's supposed to be free online, right? Everything on the internet's free, but now people are actually paying for it. So,
Right.
I know we both worked for the Wall Street Journal. It was one of the few publications back in the day that had a paywall. But it's interesting to see that more of these publications are putting up paywalls, and they're actually succeeding. Like they're actually getting people to pay.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's some kind of like mental justification for customers to say, well, if I pay for it, it must be better quality, as opposed to like.
Yeah, I would say there's probably some sort of level of like justification there, right?
Yeah.
If you're charging for it, it's got to be worth whatever you're paying. Like.
It's one of the factors that weighs in when you're trying to filter out the fake news, and they always say, is it a trusted brand, is it HTTPS, that kind of thing.
Right.
But like, did you have to throw a buck at it? Probably better off.
Yeah. I mean, that's the argument from a tech side that Apple makes, for its products versus Google, right? Like, Google Photos is free. Well, yeah, because they got all your information. Like, you have to pay for our service, but we're not. You're not your information isn't the product. Our product is the product. So it's kind of the same principle. Like, you're paying for this, and thus you should have some sort of level of security for your information.
We are getting down a meta rabbit hole right now.
We really are.
Let's take a couple more questions. Josh Boyda, at what point does cord cutting cost more than cable by having to subscribe to Netflix, HBO, Amazon Prime, et cetera, et cetera?
Like,
I'm getting close to that myself.
I feel like it can be, right? Like,
I mean, that's the thing about the cable bundle. It's like people love to complain about your cable provider and your satellite provider, but ultimately you get to pay a lot less for a lot, considering how much content you get with a cable subscription. You have to pay a lot, but you get tons, and then when you have to break it down into those little itty bitty pieces, you realize that it adds up really quickly.
And it really depends on how much they charge you for just like if you're just getting internet access.
That's the biggest
vary
cost.
Greatly,
is getting your internet.
They know
access.
they're like the phone. I mean, at this point, phone service is essentially free.
They practically pay you.
Yeah, but that internet, especially if you want to get higher speeds, it gets pretty pricey.
Yeah.
All right. One last question before we call it a day. Matthew Datcher says, who will replace Franklin? Now, I don't think we need to go into who's actually going to take up his seat in the House.
Yeah,
but
the Senate.
But I think I want to reform that question. And Dash, I'm sorry if I'm mixing up your words here, but who's going to be replacing Franken as far as the proverbial poster child for net neutrality representation?
That is a fantastic question. I would say like Brian Schatz, a senator from Hawaii, has been really vocal about trying to start net neutrality as a movement. A lot of there are a number of Democrats who really want to push the idea of legislation to control net neutrality or basically introduce more modern regulations.
But he became a mascot of sorts, being a guy who came from television originally.
Yeah,
and
it was easy for him to become this lightning rod for it because he was recognizable.
Exactly,
right?
a celebrity before.
I don't know, maybe John Oliver. No, well, because
in a different way.
In a different way, he was
in a
definitely
more politically fueled seat. I think is a better question though, because there's tons of celebrities that bark about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody who actually can sign papers.
Right. The issue is that while there are plenty of Democrats who want to introduce legislation, they're not in the majority, and so they don't really have control of the Senate or Congress and all. So they really don't have any options at this point. But to Datch's question, I believe the governor of Minnesota is going to appoint someone to replace Franklin, at least until I guess special elections or something. I don't really know how it really works. But I was told that because the governor is also a Democrat, like whoever replaces him will most likely also be a net neutrality supporter.
Likely. I mean, that's just statistically speaking. But will they be the same kind of iconic loudspeaker? Will they?
Probably not.
Can they get to that place on their own without that vehicle?
Personally, as a journalist, I'm disappointed that. Obviously, I'm disappointed in his behavior, but I'm disappointed that he's leaving because, in terms of, he was on the Intelligence Committee. He talked when he grilled Facebook and Google and Twitter over all that Russia influence stuff. He was one of the most animated, most quote-worthy guys out there. He was really laying into those companies. Mm-hmm. Not every senator was like that, and so it's kind of a blow for a lot of issues because he seemed very knowledgeable about a lot of the tech and media issues, stuff that we care about.
Yeah, he was a good resource for you guys to just write about.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
now you're gonna have to go digging.
And he's got his showmanship. He knows how to work his words.
Yeah, that's true. Unfortunately, he didn't know how to control his hands.
Yeah, yeah.
But all right. I think
that terrible note.
Sorry, come on.
No, it's true.
That was solid.
It was good.
I'll file it for later.
All right. Well, this is the last show of the year for me.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can't feel that bad because somebody's going on vacation.
To a flaming inferno.
That's true.
Oh, God.
I'm like, yeah, my
be
house,
safe
my
out there. Be
house
careful.
is relatively close to the evacuation zone. Not close enough that it needs to be evacuated yet, but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, anyways, have a good trip. It's been a good 2017. We've had fantastic shows with you.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, and we will have shows next week, as well as a couple special pre-tape segments during the last 2 weeks of the year.
Yeah, since we will have a hiatus coming up due to the holidays.
And then CES.
And then we'll see you back live from CES. We're still not sure how that's going to flesh out, when the show is going to happen in the day's block. But CNET's going to be live all day, every day at CES. So, all you got to do is kind of peek at YouTube, and you're good to go.
Yeah, well, obviously follow us on Twitter. We'll give you updates on when the show will be back, what time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to get a little weird the next couple of weeks between CES and the Detroit Auto Show, right?
Yeah, we'll be down during a decent block in January as well, but things will be pretty much back to normal by late January, early February.
Theoretically.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Don't worry, we're not actually going anywhere. We just got to do the shuffle.
Right. All right, if you liked anything you saw or heard here, check us out on CNET. Our podcast is also available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Feedburner, and Google Play Music, and you can check us out on the Amazon Echo.
All right, everybody, have a fantastic weekend. Some of us will be back on Monday.